Hi everybody. Welcome to the session. My name is Dr. Mark Matthews, and I am the course director for the Masters of Sports and Exercise Medicine at Ulster University, and we sit within the School of Sport or the Faculty of Life and Health Sciences. So what this webinar is about is just a sort of a quick overview of what the course is going to be, kind of the details of the course, the nuts and bolts of it really. So I'm just going to share the presentation now. So this should show up on your slides. Sort of show up on your screens. So as I say, this talk is recorded and it's a nice thing to come back to if you've got any questions or kind of considerations. But what I'll run through is just what the course is about, the nuts and bolts of it, and where we'll go to kind of from there, and kind of get some key parts, but also, you know, what's the unique about this course that I think has a really strong value to it. So So like I say, today we're covering the Masters of Sports and Exercise Medicine. One of the big things and the big questions that's always important to remember is, well, why are you doing an MSc? And there's two ways with it. Like, why as a student, why are you really interested in doing it? What is it that's sort of driving you, that's brought you to this point to consider this Masters of Sports and Exercise Medicine? From my point of view as the course director and also lecturer on the course, my primary focus of why this MSc has value is we try to develop you from your sort of graduate or your foundational sort of health professionals course that you've done. We try and develop you to get a really good understanding of the importance of evidence reasoning, evidence reasoning, and the critical thinking and sort of development skills, that kind of clinical reasoning aspect, using the evidence, best evidence, and your best sort of critical thinking skills to try to really enhance you as a sort of specialist reflective practitioner. And the purpose is that is when you have a person sitting in front of you or that you're working with, you're sort of listening and engaging and taking in the information that they're explaining to you, and you're able to bounce that off the kind of where we're at with best evidence and sort of synthesize that information to kind of put forward good critical thinking skills in terms of your approach, your management, your advice, your education, to really try and optimize their sort of recovery and rehab from their injury, or perhaps even sort of manage it through. But it's also looking important from a performance point of view as well, that you're trying to optimize their performance and trying for them to get their best out of them while they play within their sort of chosen sport. It's really important at this point here to highlight that the Masters is actually tailored towards those with a sports and exercise medicine background. So what we're talking about here is medical doctors, physiotherapists, and podiatrists predominantly. To be eligible for the course, you need to be a registered health professional with the Health and Care Professionals Councils within the UK, or CORA if you're from Ireland, or an equivalent body, a regulatory body that sort of oversees your profession as such. There's three major elements to this Masters, and this is what's really important. It's about future-proofing your career. Is yes, you will impart knowledge and you'll gain knowledge through this course, but it's important to understand that knowledge generally goes out of date within about 2 years. So things we know now, about 50% of it will be kind of out of date within 2 years' time, because that's how fast we sort of develop new knowledge and understanding. So this course is about gaining kind of what we're at currently with our knowledge, and then but to develop these sort of cognition and critical thinking skills, the ability to synthesize the information the person is telling you with the latest evidence. But then also, and this is where I think the Masters sits really nichely, has a niche with your future proofing as a career, it's about the metacognition. And it's that self-reflection about your own thinking skills, your own cognitive biases, and your own awareness and limitations, and also being aware of what other skills are out there and who you can kind of collaborate and work with. So this course is really about future-proofing your career from a long-term point of view, looking at, yes, knowledge, but more importantly about your critical thinking and analytical skills, and also your self-reflection of your own skills and abilities. You know, where do I need to develop, where do I need to grow, and sort of become more of a rounded out practitioner. And the purpose of that is this Masters is a stepping stone onto your next step. It's not a be all and end all. It's about progressing you on to be, you know, a better, more developed, more refined practitioner. So if I can impart through you through this Masters these kind of cognition and reflective skills, then you're away laughing. Okay. So how does this Masters, what's the program structure of it? Well, there's 4 kind of fundamental modules that you will run through. And these are the 4 modules here where we look at sports injury management, we look at sports rehabilitation, we look at optimizing exercise and performance and load, and that's kind of a bit more of a biomechanical and physiology aspect to it. And then the fourth one is looking at research methods. That methods is about the ability to sort of understand and critique latest evidence, latest research, to then sort of also then develop you the proposals to then undertake a research project. Now, you can exit the Masters after just completing those 4 modules with a postgraduate diploma in sports and exercise medicine, but you can also then progress on to do a research project, which is 60 credits, and you end up with 180 credits if you pass everything, and there you have your Masters. So those 5 modules make up the Masters course. The 4 are the sort of fundamentals that you need to undertake before you can do the research project. So how would that look like if we were to run you through a full-time Masters? So the semester starts in September, and we start off with 2 modules at the beginning, is the sports rehabilitation, the critical thinking dynamic practice, and that's really starting to hone in on some clinical and critical thinking skills, but also looking from an evidence-based point of view around research methods. So being critical and synthesizing sort of latest evidence, but then also looking at it from a sports rehabilitation point of view. So the 2 modules kind of work in unison through semester 1. In semester 2, we then move into sports injury management, where we look more at areas or zones within the body, and we sort of target around common injuries. And we have a lot of guest speakers come in at this point and kind of impart their knowledge and their clinical experience and skills and own reasoning around these different injuries and considerations. The second part in that module is looking at more from a biomechanics and sort of physiology point of view, and that's where we're thinking about optimizing exercise, balancing against load and tissue capacity, those sort of considerations that when you think about a runner, for example, or about the way that they move and how that they move and what has their training been like, more than addressing, for example, their actual specific injury, it's like, well, what are all the other considerations around their sport that I need to take into when I'm thinking about sort of managing their injury as well as rehabilitating them? And that's second semester. If you do it full time, you'll see that the research project spreads across semester 2 and semester 3. But in reality, you're looking at semester 1, you do your research methods first, that then rolls into becoming your sort of a research project. So effectively, your research project is across the 3 semesters, long and skinny, for example. But what it is, it's the methods part first that sort of sets the scene, builds up your sort of understanding and starts to develop the idea, which will then become your research project, and you kind of run that across. So semester 3 is during the summer period, and that's where we're looking at sort of between April to August, you'll complete your research project. So full-time is a 12-month course, or you'll run through from September through to September. But there's much more in semester 3. It's much more one-to-one basis with no structured classwork. You work one-to-one with your supervisor. If we look at it from a part-time point of view, you'll do 1 module per semester. So you can see it's the same sort of structure. Semester 1 is sports rehab, semester 2 and year 1 is the injury management, but then we start looking more towards the research methods and the biomechanics and that sort of approach. So if you're looking at it from a part-time point of view, it's stretched across 3 years, but you can condense down, and if you are going well and with consideration, you can do your research project in year 2 and just get the course done over a 2-year period. So technically it's over 3, but there is the option that we can get it sometimes done over 2 years, where you do this 2 sports modules in year 1, and year 2 is research methods, research project, and optimizing exercise and load. But that's something you discuss with me as a course director. Does it work? How does that fit around, what other elements are going on within your life? This is what I think is the unique part of the master's courses, is that we have specialists within the school and university who will present to you, but I do my best to try and bring in as many external voices, because I think it's really important to hear a lot of different people giving you their ideas, their impressions, their sort of views on the way that we manage and optimize sort of things within sports and exercise medicine. And there's different people from all of these different organizations that will come and talk to you, present to you, and work with you. So we have a lot of affiliations within Northern Ireland and in and around Belfast. From a professional sports point of view, we've got links with the Belfast Giants, which is an ice hockey team where I work with as a physiotherapist, but we've also got strong links with the professional rugby team here, Ulster Rugby, and also with the Irish Rugby Football Union through that way as well. We have private practitioners that also come in, who are physiotherapists, and also sports medicine practitioners or doctors who will also come in. We also have visiting professors coming in from other universities also that contribute course and kind of give you as much well-rounded sort of knowledge, reasoning, critical thinking skills from lots of different areas, both clinically, within private practice, within professional sports, but also from a research and also academic point of view. So you're trying to get as much different information and ideas from as many areas as possible to show you, where does all this information come from, but also try to assimilate it within sort of different areas within where your careers may go. From a teaching staff point of view, there's a lot of different professions who will be teaching and delivering materials to you. There's sports physicians and orthopedic surgeons at one end, right through to physiology, biomechanists. In the centre, there's the physiotherapy and the strength and conditioning, which is a fundamental block to the masters. But then we start moving towards the psychology and the coaching aspects for considerations, and then right down to kind of the researchers at the other end of the spectrum, who do pure research and their considerations around research methodology to give you those sort of fundamentals to help you with your research project. The way that the course is delivered, obviously COVID has changed the structure of the things that have been done and the way we may have done it previously. So the course is evolving and adapting to the environment and the guidelines and restrictions that we have. But the course will be now delivered in a blended fashion, and it's made up of 3 key elements. Each will have different contributions. There is online delivery, and that will be delivered through Blackboard Learn, which is sort of the platform where you'll access the materials, and there's pre-recorded presentations that will be put up on through there on a weekly basis. There's sort of discussion boards, there's access to different podcasts from different professionals who will be talking to you. We also have live discussion tutorials or kind of drop-in sessions where we meet and discuss ideas as a group. There's live webinars as well that we can link in with, and also a lot of online resources so you can find different sources of information. We have a strong practical element through the course, so we meet on a weekly basis as the kind of plan for the next academic year. We meet once a week to do practical elements as well as group discussion work in a face-to-face, safe, COVID-friendly or COVID guidelined environment where we can actually meet on a weekly basis to discuss these things. Now that is susceptible to change depending on the guidelines and what we can and can't do. But that is kind of the current pitch, is that we would meet sort of once a week, and the plan being on a Thursday, that we would meet to discuss in the mornings and workshop ideas from there. But they are susceptible to change. They're not in concrete, but it's just to give you the idea that we would be planning to meet on a weekly basis, face-to-face, or mask to mask. But there's also a large element of what we call self-directed learning. We don't expect it to give you all of the information, but we tend to point you in the right direction of where you can find more, so that as you become more curious about the information that's out there, you can start to find these other resources to do your own directed learning, to start to future-proof you more further towards where you may want to go with the rest of your career. And that's a good consideration, because as you develop these skills, you want to impart that onto sort of the next generations of physios that's coming through. You may have to host CPD sessions as well. Just from a campus point of view, it's just something that we need to consider, that the Belfast campus is opening up, and our school will be relocating to the Belfast campus this coming September, and we will be opening up. But the course may be delivered within the Jordanstown campus, which is down the road a little bit, as well as on the Belfast campus as well. The reason for that is that we have the sports facilities, the gymnasiums at the Jordanstown campus that we can use. There's much more classroom space within the Belfast Centre, so we will sort of relocating between the two of them for this course. It'll depend on what's required and what we need to be, but I'll keep you up to date as much as we can. But the Belfast campus is opening, and we do plan to be delivering there from September, and your first kind of few weeks will be hosted within the Belfast campus from an orientation and sort of get to know us and laying out how the course will run point of view. But as doors open, as we become more facilities become available, I'll keep you up to date with that as we go. From a COVID-19 point of view, it's really important to keep up to date, because things can change quite dramatically and pretty quickly. So you'll see on the third point down there is, the Ulster University, what our guidelines are from a coronavirus point of view. So it's ulster.ac UK/coronavirus, and that's the best way that you can keep yourself up to date. But within the current guidelines, we can meet within certain rooms with the restrictions around us, and we can still do some practical elements for short periods of time. We did that quite successfully in semester 2 of this academic year. Thank you. So that's kind of a bit of an overview of the course, kind of the fundamentals, the key parts, the key considerations for it. Are there any questions or considerations? Anyone want to raise any ideas? Nope. By all means, look, if you do have any questions or if you're listening to this as, as a pre-recording and you want to hear more about it, please feel free to drop me an email. Katrina, I've just seen you've got a message popped up there. Do you mind just typing in the message into the chat box and I can answer that one directly? But just while Katrina's just typing, oh yeah, there she is. That's okay. So Katrina's just raised a question here about, she comes from a podiatry background, perhaps may not be as fully as aware as around the spine, the shoulder, the upper limb, that sort of considerations. And that's the same because we have a melting pot of different professions. Yes, you may think the course looks quite physiotherapy orientated. The reason that we have structured it this way and why it's called sports and exercise medicine is that no profession ever works in isolation within sort of elite or professional sports. We work as a dynamic team. So it's important to understand that we all have different areas of the body that we will cover and how they may all interlink. So when it comes to your assignments, and this is probably what people worry about the most, I will only ever assess you and your assignments will be structured in a way that's specific to your profession. But what we do through the course is try and raise your awareness across multiple different domains, across different professions. So when you're working with a team or when you're communicating amongst different health professionals, you've got a sort of a fundamental understanding of what you're all trying to cover. So as a podiatry student, no, I don't expect you to be able to, give me a full detailed description of what's happening with the upper limb, but it's just raising your awareness of how that may then fit in through the lower limb and that kind of kinetic chain. So yes, there's a little bit of element you'd be like, hang on, that's not quite about what my profession does, but it's just raising your sort of awareness. But we're always cognizant to make sure that the material that we delivered can be applicable across all the professions that are there. So don't panic if you're listening to this and you're kind of from a podiatry background, which you are, and I'm talking about things around concussion. They're kind of an interest sake, but we do have a special sort of podiatry or foot lower limb focused part that will certainly be applicable that you'll learn a lot from. So there's a little bit for everybody in here, and this is not tailored specifically just towards one sort of profession per se. Okay. But look, my email address is just there. So if you do have any more questions or considerations or anything else that you'd like to know, please feel free just to drop me an email, and I'll respond to you as quick as I can and deal with things on a one-to-one basis.